On this morning, the terrorists attacked. My niece was putting the 3 kids in their safe room as the bombs were flying over. Her husband, who's a photojournalist, he had gone outside to take photos, which he had done many times to put on the Israeli news. But this morning was different. There were terrorists that were landing by paragliders and by foot coming in. She was putting these 3 kids in their safe room, and the Hamas terrorists came in and they murdered her in front of these 3 children. The 3 kids ran outside, and their father, who was coming back, picked up Abigail, a beautiful 3-year-old child, and with a 6 and a 9-year-old, Amalia and Michael, they ran, and then the terrorists murdered him. And he fell onto Abigail, and Michael and Amalia saw what happened, and they ran home and locked themselves in a closet with a cell phone for 14 hours. They were our reporters. They were the ones that told us what happened that morning. And we learned subsequently, a few days later, when not only Michael and Amalia were finally rescued and taken off the kibbutz, but my niece and her husband and many others that were hiding, that were the survivors. Over 60 people were murdered that morning on this kibbutz. Children, parents, I think it was 19 who were kidnapped. So what we learned a few days after they could finally clear the kibbutz was that Abigail was nowhere to be found. And what we started to understand was that Abigail had actually survived and crawled out from under her father's body, covered in his blood, and gone to a neighbor. And there was no one there. Everyone was hiding in their safe rooms. Jewish people were never supposed to be hidden and hiding from people hunting them after the Shoah. And here they are in their homeland, their native homeland, and people who weren't even Jewish, people from over 30 nations, 5 religions, and here they were all hiding. So this little girl is running through a neighborhood, just any neighborhood that we can imagine, and there's terrorists everywhere. And she gets to a second house, and by miracle, the man of that house, Avichai Brodich, was going out to protect the kibbutz. His wife and 3 kids were hiding in their safe room. He takes Abigail, miracle, sees this little girl, and puts her with his wife and 3 kids. And he goes out to protect the kibbutz, and he's injured and doesn't come back. But we learned from him that he had actually seen Abigail and done this. Another neighbor had actually seen Abigail's wife, Hagar, being marched off with their 3 kids. But nobody could accurately at that time, with all the craziness and the fighting and this war going on, they could not actually say if Abigail was with her. But when she was nowhere to be found, we assumed that she had been taken as a hostage. And for 51 days, we had no communication, and we knew nothing other than she had been taken as a hostage. And for me, that was a beginning of at least having something to fight for, which was, how do we get this child? But all the 250 people stolen that day by these monsters, how do we get them back?